accommodate folks getting seated. I'm Debbie Goodman. I am the Director of Communications and the Public Information Officer for the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. And we thought it was prudent to put on this town hall meeting to offer some transparency and some solutions and to address your concerns that you may have with officer-involved shootings. I know everybody in here just about is following the news of Ferguson, Missouri, and we do not want the unrest that is happening in Ferguson, Missouri to happen right here in Dallas County. That is something that is unacceptable for the streets of Dallas County. Yeah. So we can all agree with that, and we wanted to start a dialogue with the DA. That's how this all came up with the development of this new civil rights unit, which he will share with you shortly. I do want to turn it over now to the pastor of this church, who was so gracious to host all of you individuals from the community, as well as the media, my friends, since I've worked in the news business before. And we welcome you, and we want the pastor to come up and talk about how important he thought it was to address the concerns so that we do not have a repeat of the madness in Missouri. So let's welcome Pastor Richie Butler.
I want to personally welcome you to St. Paul United Methodist Church on this evening, and it's good to see you out because of the importance of this particular issue and matter, and what a fitting place to hold this conversation. And understand, we believe in St. Paul that we're called, and we're in the center of the city for a reason, to help shepherd the city. And when things like this come to the forefront, we want to be at the table to help guide the direction of the conversation so it is in a meaningful manner. And with that, I want to open up this conversation and this dialogue with a prayer. So if you don't mind, let us go to God in prayer. Eternal God, we come on this evening. We thank you for life. We thank you for love. We thank you for hope. We thank you for forgiveness. We thank you for justice. We thank you for healing. We thank you for power. We thank you for salvation. We thank you for redemption. We thank you for relationship. We thank you for understanding. We thank you for comfort. We thank you for everything that we find in you. So God, I know some people here this evening don't have answers, but we know you are the answer. And so we turn to you right now as we engage in an open, sincere dialogue and conversation. We pray that your spirit will rest, rule, and abide in this place. And then when we leave this place, it will rest, rule, and abide in our hearts so that we see each other differently and we truly model what it means to be followers of you. Exclamation point, love. We ask it all in your name. Amen. Amen. I will say one final thing. I think this conversation today is really appropriate because it's about bringing us together to talk, to have an open, honest talk. And there were two brothers who had a rift between them. They both shared a farm. And they had such a rift that they decided to create a barrier between the two. And they didn't talk for 10 years. And one day, a guy came along who was a carpenter. And one was looking for work. And he went to one of the brothers and said, I'll do work for you. And the brother said, I got a job for you. I want you to build me a 10-foot fence because I don't want to see that person on the other side. And the carpenter said, I'll take you up on that offer. He paid him half of it up front. He left to go on business. He comes back. And the carpenter did not build a fence, but he built a bridge. And the other brother didn't realize that the brother hadn't sanctioned the bridge, thought he sanctioned the bridge, and came onto the other side and embraced his brother, and they reconciled. And I believe that you're in the church because the church is a place for bridge building. And so we have issues, we have challenges, but we are here to build a bridge so that we can all have a better and brighter future. So we look forward to this dialogue on this evening. Thank you for being here. St. Paul United.
I want to tell everybody you will have a chance to ask your questions within the time frame. We are looking to go till 8:15. It is 7:15 right now. So we're going to allow each of our officials here heading up law enforcement for Dallas County to introduce themselves and talk about what each entity is doing right now to address concerns as it relates to officer-involved shootings and what they're doing to offer more transparency, because I think everybody can agree that in this community, that is what we want, that is what we need, and that's why we're here today to talk about it. So let's start right now with District Attorney Craig Watkins. If you could take your mic, each of you have a mic in front of you, and if you could talk a little bit about the Civil Rights Unit that was just created, funds were just approved for that, and why you think that is so important right now for Dallas County.
All right, well, first of all, I want to say good afternoon, and because I'm a lawyer, I'm used to standing up talking, so I'm going to stand up and have a conversation with you. That doesn't mean, Sheriff Luby and Chief, that you guys have to stand up, but I just like to stand up when I'm talking. I want to thank Richie Butler. I've known Richie for a long time. We worked at church together, and he's made a really good impact on this city, and the fact that he's the pastor of the oldest African American church now in Dallas is a great thing, and the fact that he's holding this town hall for us is indicative of who he is as an individual and as a person, and the fact that he understands that we do need to have this conversation. Dallas is a great place, first of all. We're not Missouri. And we need individuals to understand that we're not Missouri. I've had the opportunity to be the district attorney for 8 years, and change is very difficult, and sometimes it takes a long time. And so over the last 8 years, we've implemented a lot of changes at the district attorney's office, and we're not done. And so the most immediate change at this point in the administration that we put in place is to deal with this issue of police officer shootings, and not just police officer shootings, but public trust as it relates to law enforcement. And we've been working on this for a long time, for about 2 years, to get the funds so we can put this in place. And a lot of folks think that, well, politically, Craig, this is a perfect time for you to do this because of everything that's happening nationally. But the reality is that we've been working on this for 2 years. And fortunately, we have gotten our commissioners to agree within the last few months to fund this section of the district attorney's office that will allow us to independently investigate police officer shootings. Let me first say this, is that we're not calling into question what police officers do. And although their jobs are very difficult, law enforcement is difficult. What we're saying is that we need to restore the public's trust. And in order to do that, we believe that you need an independent voice or an independent agency to look at what's going on with these shootings. And when that independent voice comes forward and says, outside of what the police do, that it was a legitimate shooting or it was not, then it's more believable than if you have the police officers investigating themselves and they say, well, it was legitimate. And it's not to say that we're trying to cover for the police department. What we're going to do is basically investigate these cases in conjunction with the police department, but also make sure that you believe in what's going on. I grew up in Dallas. Obviously, I'm an African-American male, and I've seen the ugly side of law enforcement more so than a lot of folks that live in Dallas.
And you should know.
But what's fortunate is I get to be the district attorney in Dallas County. I get to bring my perspective of what it means to be a prosecutor, of what law enforcement should be to the citizens of Dallas County. We've never had that. And my responsibility at this point is to put in place this section of the district attorney's office. How will it work? Well, if a shooting happens at 3 o'clock in the morning, then we will have our investigator and our prosecutor that will actually go out on the scene and start the investigation immediately to look at what happened and to make a determination as we go along through the investigation. And we want to expedite the process. What we've seen over the years since I've been a district attorney It takes a long time to investigate these shootings, which is unfortunate for the victims. It's unfortunate for the families who have to deal with this, who have questions. And so we want to make sure that we get through this process very quickly, and we can come back to the public and explain to them why the decision was made as it relates to if it was justified or it was not. And traditionally, as a prosecutor, we don't explain the process of how we investigate cases or why we came to a conclusion. But I think in the climate that we live in today, in this country, in Dallas County, I think we have to make an exception. And we have to explain to you why a certain conclusion was made as it relates to these issues. We don't want to see the same thing that we saw in Missouri here in Dallas County. And the reason we can keep that from happening is that if we keep you apprised, if there's transparency, and if you believe in the system. And, you know, I have to give kudos to Chief Brown and even Sheriff Luke Valdez, because they have been basically working within the community to make changes. And you have to understand something. Like I said in the beginning, change is difficult. You can sympathize with Chief Brown. He can't say this, but he's got to deal with police officer unions who, on some occasions, don't like to see change. Hopefully, we can get them on board that will allow us to make policing better. Wilkie Valdez, she's been the sheriff longer than I've been the DA. She's had to deal with it. But you have to understand the logistics of what it means to be an elected official and the head of an organization, how difficult it is to make changes. We're doing that. We're fighting the battle. And I just want you to understand that as time goes on, and as long as we have the opportunity to serve you, we are going to have the backbone and the fortitude to make sure that every citizen in Dallas County, no matter what you look like, what color you are, where you're from, what language you speak, that you will be represented by law enforcement. You can pick up the phone and call the police. You can pick up the phone and call the district attorney's office. You can pick up the phone and call the sheriff's department, because things are changing. It'll take time. We're getting there, so please have faith in what we're doing. Thank you.
Now I want to go to Dallas Police Chief David Brown, and you can stand or not. I don't know if the media can you see them when they stand? Are y'all getting a good shot? Okay. So, and maybe.
I don't like those shots.
But Chief Brown, if you could talk about, you and Mr. Watkins have talked about how you think that this extra layer of oversight is important.
Right, I support the DA's new unit because you can't have enough oversight when it relates to police-involved shootings in any city. So we support more oversight. As a matter of fact, we've had for a couple of years now oversight from the Dallas FBI office of all of our police-involved shootings. We send over immediately the briefing of all of our police shootings to the FBI here locally in Dallas, just as a awareness and a look, open look at what we're doing from the very beginnings of our investigations with the FBI. And so I applaud DA Craig Watkins on adding even another layer of oversight. You can't have enough oversight. But let me just quickly talk briefly about what the Dallas Police Department has been doing. I've been chief since 2010, but this is my 31st year as a Dallas police officer. That's why I don't have my afro anymore. Doing this job will age you quite a bit. So since 2010, we've really made a recommitment to community engagement. We want to reach out to our young people and establish a relationship in the community. Get the young people you parents know you care about. And we go to the toughest neighborhoods in Dallas and establish police athletic league. We do Junior Police Academy, our sports program. We go to all the toughest neighborhoods with Chief on the Beat, which is our health and safety and fair. We, this past year in 2013, started our Coffee with Cops, in partnership with McDonald's. In the morning, we go out to several McDonald's several times a year And we believe that the best way to have the best outcome when you have a crisis is to have a relationship prior to that crisis. And so community engagement is a strategic aspect of our success in the community. It's not when it's not if you're going to have the crisis, it's when that crisis might happen. And you need to have relationships established in those communities, in all communities in Dallas, before that 911 call where you have obviously some challenges in resolving them. In addition to the community engagement effort, this year in our budget that we're discussing in Dallas, 200 body cameras have been funded. And so we'll be hopefully rolling those out almost immediately once they're approved in this budget, which will be at the end of September. We'll get that funding, and then we'll start the process of purchasing. Hopefully early next year, if not toward the end of this year, we'll have our officers outfitted with body cameras, the first 200. In addition to that funding from the city council, we are testing 90 body cameras now in the field. We have been testing 25 3 months ago. We got an additional 8 vendors to allow us to test 90 body cameras in the field. And so every interaction with all of our incidents will be caught on camera. I suggest it's probably already being caught on camera because everyone has a smartphone. You just have to assume you're going to be on camera. But we want to make that a part of our policing strategy, that we are being transparent in everything we do. In addition to the 200 that we're going to get in this funding, the Meadows Foundation is being presented with a plan to add an additional 200 body cameras to our department. Also in this budget, we're purchasing 2,000 tasers, and we haven't in the past had a lot of tasers in our department. We've had about 700 or so tasers in our department. We had, because of the challenges with tasers causing deaths early on, our department backed off of tasers several years back. But tasers now have smart tasers that stop or reduce the electrical charge that has not had the same outcomes from the initial tasers back 7 years ago. So we feel comfortable expanding our use of tasers. What tasers do is a less than lethal enforcement tool when you have to take someone under control, particularly in some of the ways that our officers deal with the mentally ill who might be violent but might not necessarily deserve some of the outcomes that we have been experiencing. And so we are committed to all of the tools that are in the law enforcement toolbox, and we've been committed to community engagement. And let me just say this honestly speaking, we're not perfect. And we're not going to be perfect. Here's what I truly believe before I take my seat. I believe our critics can be our best teachers. I believe that. And I know that you may not feel that people are listening to you criticize, but I can assure you, I'm listening to you. I'm listening to every word you say. And I'm taking it to heart. And I'm doing my best, and these officers are doing their best to heed your words. We don't take citizen support for granted. We don't dismiss you because you disagree with us. We want to find the best ways to protect you. We do. We want to find them. And so you keep criticizing, you stay in our ear. I'm not asking you to calm down or be quiet. I want to hear from you. Some of you I've met with you individually, and we have left the meeting, and maybe we not agreed on everything. But I didn't ignore what you said. I've listened to you. I'm going to listen to you tonight. And I'm going to continue listening to you. As long as I'm chief, we're going to heed your words. Our officers, we get it. We do. And officers don't always agree with each other. But at the end of the day, we work for you. At the end of the day, we're public servants. And you write our checks. Your tax dollars pay our salaries. And we don't forget that. I'll ensure that we won't forget that. We have made decisions that not everyone in this room may have liked. And then we made the decision not everybody in the department liked. So I get it from both ways. But we're going to try our best to do the right things for you. And we recognize that we are public servants and that you are our bosses. And I'll pass it on, Debbie, to the next one.
Now, Sheriff, the Honorable Dallas County Sheriff Lupe Valdez, and I know you were already offering that independent oversight to even like Cedar Hill and smaller departments, so you've already been working in that direction.
I was going to sit down just to be different, but I have a feeling you won't be able to see me, I'm so short. But first of all, thank you for being here, talking about the Pastor's Bridge. That's what is necessary for us to come to you and for you to come to us. And what a good statement for Dallas to have so many people out here doing that bridge. So first of all, thank you for being here. When we first started using cameras in our department, a lot of the officers objected. A lot of the officers didn't want the cameras. But what actually came out being was that more officers were proven correct by their actions than were proven wrong. What I'm trying to say is there's nothing wrong with some oversight. I welcome oversight from our DA or others in order to be able to validate what we're doing. I believe that we're doing the correct thing when we do some investigations. And by the way, as the DA mentioned, we have taken some of our own to his office and say they need to be looked at. So I'm welcoming this unit because it actually will validate a lot of the stuff that we're doing. But we need to be proactive. As the chief said, I love the fact that the chief and I agree on so much stuff. We need to be proactive instead of reactive to a lot of issues. Community policing, as he mentioned, is one of the best ways to do that. In every community, there are some strong, law-abiding citizens, and they want us to come in there as your public servant to do what is right. And as was mentioned before, and I think we copy our talks, we make mistakes. In a crisis situation, you have to think in 2 or 3 seconds, and we make mistakes. But it's what happens after that that we need to be discussing and that we need to obtain your trust on. In every situation, there is a spark and fuel. Sparks will continually happen. Fuel is up to us to stop, for both sides, for you and us to stop. So we need to come together more often, as we do. He talked about his talks with the chief. I think I have 31 cities in my jurisdiction, and other such as DART, and I noticed police chief from a couple of other places here, DART and DISD, all of those are within our jurisdiction. So there's no way that I could do all of those, but I have 7 chiefs, 9 chiefs, several captains, several lieutenants, and every activity that comes up, we try to be in, just to continue to have an open road between the community and us. Usually when you're in a more relaxed situation, people are more comfortable in bringing their issues to you. It's difficult to call your office, get a hold of you, etc., etc. But both the chief and I are out in situations where you can easily reach us. People have a right to voice their opinion. People have a right to come out in a group and discuss things. They have a right to do that. It's also our duty to make sure that no one gets hurt in those situations where they express their opinions. And lastly, community policing is a philosophy. It has to be brought into the department, and it has to be carried out in a strategical manner. Both of us have that philosophy, and we're both trying to carry out strategically. We try to do how we can extend to the community so that issues like that will not happen. Issues happen when there's anger and sparks all over the area. Some of these things we can't stop, but other things we can help bring down a little, tame a little, as to us listening, because you do have a right to express your opinion, and we are your servants. we will come out whenever we are called, and we are your servants, and as long as we're human, we may err, but we will try to do what is best after that to avoid the fear. Thank you very much.
Open it up for some questions. If you want to come down and speak, but we set this mic up right here. Pastor Butler, if you could help me on this side over here. And again, 2 minutes. We can't have one person go on for 5 minutes and 10 minutes. We don't have that type of time. But again, they are here because they want to start this dialogue, and they are serious about the service for Dallas County. So can you state your name and your question?
My name is Reverend Demas. I'm representing the Twin Oaks Neighborhood Association in the Red River area. There's a couple of neighborhood associations over there, Glen Oaks, Canyon, and all that. As the summer came and stuff like that, crime did kind of rise in our area. But we expect a little bit this and that. But as a homeowner, we want to keep our neighborhood safe as possible. These are areas that a lot of people are familiar with. 2 questions I have. The cameras that we're supposed to be getting from the body, are they going to be audio also, or just cameras? Okay, the last question I have.
Oh, let me answer that somewhere about camera. Audio and video.
Audio and video, okay. Now, the civil rights, this new project that you're coming out with, is it just going to be for police shooting? Because, as I did just mention, crime in our area has risen. So if I go out and happen to defend myself or my property, is this independent investigation go on? So just like, let's just use a good example, George Zimmerman in Florida. If a citizen shoots somebody, will this same independent type investigation take place immediately right then? I know we don't have standing ground, though, but, you know.
No, the DA's office, we are the 8th largest district attorney's office in the country. We have over 500 employees, 250 lawyers. We have several different sections that investigate cases. Now, if an average citizen goes out and defends themselves and it comes to us for review, that will go through the proper challenge of our office. It won't go through the civil rights division.
I'll take a question from this side, sir, if you're ready.
So my name is David Harrison. I'm the brother of Jason Harrison, mentally ill guy that was shot and killed in June. My question, the cameras that you guys have, that you'll be getting, of course, my brother's shooting was the first one that you guys ever had, and the camera was used. And that was for transparency for us as citizens. But it's been 2.5 months, and of course we haven't gotten the 911 tape, we haven't seen the cameras. There's only speculation. We were able to get the autopsy. Of course, we showed he was hit 6 times and hit twice in the back. So now we want to, these cameras, you guys have them, but are they going to be for us to get understanding and closure of what's happening to our loved one?
Yes, and your point is releasing of the video from police incidents, when, how, and to who we release those videos to. So what we try to do is the day of any police shooting, we release all the information that we know at the time without interfering with the investigation, and that's what we did there. And we also pass on that information to the FBI, the day of. As we would get more information, we release that information. Because this case is still under investigation, we are still gathering information about this case. We have not released the video at this time, but we do plan on at some point releasing the video. We have recounted what's on the video, and we have released that information, exactly what happened. We released the officers' names. We released specific information about what the officers did, what your loved one did, and we recounted that the video does corroborate the information that the officers said happened and the information that other witnesses said happened. So we released as much information but for the video about that incident without interfering with the investigation. So we're always in a balancing act of how much is too much information, how much is too little. We don't want to interfere with the investigation to cause some outcome that might interfere with whether or not the grand grand jury might decide with one version over another on video.
Okay.
So we're trying to create that balance now.
Okay, I'm sorry, we do have to stay on points for 2 minutes. Understand some might have some personal questions, but this is not the forum where we can go longer than that, and we do respect your opinion, and thank you, Chief Brown, for sharing that. Next question right over here.
Yes, hi, my name is Darrell Washington. I'll be very brief. First of all, I know District Attorney Craig Watkins keep on mentioning that this is not Ferguson. And I just want everybody to know, other than the unnecessary looting that's been going on in Ferguson, I think the things that have been going on in Ferguson has been very positive because it has brought a lot of attention to a national issue that we have.
Absolutely.
Now, over the last years, I've just represented just too many mothers who have lost their kids and have not gotten any results or any answers. And just a couple of things I'd like to say to the media as well. When these young men are killed, stop putting the victims on trial.
Yeah.
The politicians who are also here, we need to see you more than when it's election time.
Yeah.
Your constituents need to see you. And finally, District Attorney Watkins and Chief, my questions is this, and I appreciate that you guys have gotten that independent unit, and I hope that it really is some transparency. One thing that I would like to see is there have been a lot of young men in the last 2 to 3 years who have lost their lives, and I think the only way we can truly give transparency to this new department is if you're going to stand up and let us know that the investigation of these young men who have been killed in the last 2 years will be reopened.
Yeah. 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 Do it.
Chief Brown and District Attorney Watkins, I understand that you guys both agree on the process, and that's great. But we cannot have somebody from the Dallas Police Department serving as an investigator for the District Attorney's unit. So I would ask that the individual who's going to be serving as an investigator be someone who is not a former Dallas police officer.
I have to be fair to the folks who have a question here. That was an attorney who wanted to make a statement as far as not asking a question here. But this is actually a question: to what extent is the Dallas Police Department militarized like the one in Ferguson, Missouri? In other words, does the Dallas Police Department have all the military equipment and military capability that we are seeing on TV?
We have some of the equipment you're seeing on TV. The point of the equipment is how you use it. If you notice that the point of having it has not been the point of contention, it's how it's been used. And we've had our fair share of challenges with protesters and people wanting to exercise their First Amendment. And we have not used military equipment against people expressing their First Amendment. And I think that's the point of what has been talked about in the military. Now, Dallas is a top-tier city when it comes to homeland security events. We've had the Super Bowl, we've had the opening of the President's Library, we've had NBA championships, we've had World Series, we've had NCAA Final Four, and this January we're having the first national championship college football game. And so we have our homeland security issues where we need certain type of equipment to make sure the city is safe. And we've also had terrorist threats in our cities, and that's the purpose of that type of equipment. Not for expressions of First Amendment.
Okay, I'm sorry, let me direct the questions. There's a question right here. She's been standing calmly. If you can tell me your question this time.
Sure, my name is Sarah Mulcurry. I have a question for each of you. First, I applaud you opening, Craig Watkins, I applaud you opening this new investigative unit. And I think that the first step would be to reopen the cases, as the gentleman said, because the city paid out $900,000 to Tobias Mackey's family because it was ruled an unjustified killing. That shows us, and even the fact that you're making this unit shows us that there's a problem in our investigations. So we need to reopen the cases because we know that there are a lot of families, there are a lot of people who there's no way that in the 8 years that you've been district attorney, that not one of those police-involved shootings was not justified. So we'd like you to start with that.
I'm sorry, because we have 2 minutes, I need to.
It hasn't been 2 minutes, but I'll finish.
It's 2 minutes total. I need to
Okay,
answer
and
your question.
well, if you would allow me to speak, I can ask my question. So, Sheriff Valdez, Juan May was killed in Cedar Hill and your department is right now overseeing this investigation. My question to you is, why has the officer who was off duty at the time, who killed him after losing a fight, not been arrested yet? That's my question. Why has that officer not been arrested yet? And before you answer, I'd like to ask my question to Chief Brown. I appreciate you talking about transparency, and I understand that in the case with Jason Harrison's family, that it's still an ongoing investigation. Why are the 2 officers who were involved in that case still on the force? Are they still patrolling right now, or are they at desk jobs? So that's the question. And why are they still on the force? And also, why have we not met with you? We, as Mothers Against Police Brutality, have tried to meet with you for the last month, and we have not met with you yet. So please answer that question. Thank you. This meeting is about the people talking. Is that not correct?
2 minutes, man. Everybody would like to talk.
Right, and so you all should make a meeting that's longer than 1 hour long, so that everybody can say what they need to say.
Hold on.
Have to be considerate of everybody else. Mr. Harris, Lupe Valdez, please answer the question about
Man, she's already voted. That's not good. That's not good.
That's okay, I vote.
Just vote.
We are investigating that case. Whatever the results will be taken to the DA. A murder investigation takes a while.
People get arrested though, do they not? If I was accused of murdering somebody today, I would be arrested.
And we need to make sure that all angles are looked at. And it was a Cedar Hill investigation. And we came in to assist. So we're actually taking all our direction from them, but we're doing the investigation. If it's found that, as you mentioned, he was murdered, then we will turn everything over to the DA, and the DA will continue on with the investigation. Unfortunately, we can't do everything as someone wants it. We have to go by the policies and procedures that we have. And I know it's very important to each individual, and I hear your cries. Everybody here has an issue, and I understand the time limit, but it's important to you to hear that we are on that, and we are doing an investigation, and we will bring the results out publicly as soon as it's finished. There's a lot of video, there's a lot of witnesses. There was a bus full of witnesses, and we continue to investigate that.
Thank you, Sheriff Lupe Valdez. Out of respect for everybody, we have to stick to the 2-minute time frame so we can get to everybody. There's no disrespect because we do have compassion for every loss. It's no disrespect, but if you could please respect the format.
Can you let him answer the question that I asked?
I'm sorry, the 2 minutes for your questions are over. Not everybody gets to ask 3 minutes. Question. I'm sorry. Can we go over here to you, Chief, sir? Thank you very much for waiting so patiently.
My name is Brian Swell, I'm Minister and former educator at SMU. I'd like to say tonight that this is very reflective of a period in Dallas in the 1980s. I think institutional history memory is important to my comment first. And back during the time when Etta Collins was shot, when Willie Horton and another man was being killed in South Dallas, we moved to establish laws or rules that the police department had to do with deadly force, proper life or death, life or proper, not proper life, as well as training for police officers. My question concern tonight is, one, how can the DA's office as well as the police and sheriff department create a venue like we did in the 80s where citizens like myself had ongoing dialogue with the police department, the sheriff department, during that time. And we worked together on investigations such as Etta Collins shooting, Willie Horton shooting, and other situations so that the citizens will not have to experience tonight this crushed moment of time. And they can have individuals in the community who are part of citizens relationship committees, as well as be involved in training with the police department relative to their community where they live, in regards to poverty and crime and all those issues that give rise to these situations. So those are just two questions. One, how can you create an ongoing committee structure of citizens who are engaged with the law enforcement agencies so that there is a transparency and a line of communication between the citizens and the police department, as well as we as a community, how can we continue to dialogue tonight, leaving this place, and not simply sitting here looking at each other, and that we can say we will meet again, or that we will talk to each other again. How can we do that? How can you help facilitate those types of conversations?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. This is actually just the first event that we're going to do throughout the city of Dallas. We chose this location first because it was very convenient. But this is just our first opportunity to address all the issues that are coming before us. We're going to have this conversation for a long time, and we want your input. And, I think it's a great suggestion that the citizens can get involved in how we can improve the dialogue between law enforcement. Our major goal, as we stated when we first started, was to rebuild trust with the citizens of Dallas County. Obviously, there's a trust issue. And so this is the beginning. And your suggestion will be taken very seriously as we move forward in this process.
And let me just add, sure. Okay, let me just add, currently, I have a working list of folks in the community who I send the briefings of police-involved shootings to when they happen, before we send them to the media. They get them first of all the details that we can see without jeopardizing the investigation. And we're looking forward to adding you and others to that list that want to be notified about some of the details. And what we do, we try to send it to the community leadership, grassroots level first, and then we send it out to the media, and then we inform our internal groups like the FBI and others. And so we want to reach out to as many people as we can when it happens. Sharing more information, even though you may not be able to share all of what you have because you can't verify it or corroborate it, but we're looking forward to adding as many people as possible to that list.
Now I have, I'm sorry, Lupe, did you want?
Well, I just want to mention that both the DA and I have something called the Citizens Academy. And we invite people to come in and learn all about our department and ask the questions that you need to concerning every section of our department. So that, I know we have one a year, I'm sorry. It's a 2-month process, I think, but we have one a year right now. And I'm aware that he has 1 or 2 a year also. So he can get involved that way.
You can go to both websites, dallasda.com, and what's your website, Sharon?
Sure.
DallasSheriff.com.
DallasSheriff.com. Okay. The Citizen Prosecutor Academies are very helpful to take you through the whole process of how the justice system works, how we get a case, how it goes to the grand jury, the trial process. A lot of those questions we're getting, and understand there are hurt people who have lost loved ones, and that is a terrible tragedy. A lot of it is independent grand jurors, and these are citizens. So I would encourage you to try to become a grand juror and to get more involved, especially minorities, get more involved in becoming a grand juror. And when you get that call to be a juror, just a regular juror, again, it's a jury of your peers that are looking at the evidence to see if there is enough to indict a person, and once they get the trial, is there enough evidence to convict? Everybody needs to get involved and not ignore those juror summits and not ignore the academies that we have that teach you about the process. I appreciate everybody's questions. I want to be fair, take one here. This is a question, can we increase the ratio of black officers patrolling North Dallas and pair white officers with black officers?
Good question. Good question.
We do have quite a few salt and pepper teams, as I call them. I was one as a rookie. And that's part of our culture, but we're very, I would argue, the most diverse department in the country, from top to bottom. Second in command is Hispanic. We have a very diverse command staff. All our officers work really well together, and we do have quite a bit of diversity in North Dallas, as we do in South Dallas. And we can always improve in the area of diversity, and I am high on diversity. I really am encouraged, not just on black and white, but Hispanics and women. I really love women in law enforcement. They tend to make better decisions than men. And I really love women in law enforcement, particularly in the higher ranks.
Thank you, Chief Brown. I'm sorry.
I'm Reverend Ronald White, Executive Director for Justice City of Texas. I have been fighting these cases over the last 15 years before either one of you received office. As a matter of fact, Keith Harrison and I fought a case, and I stopped the police from choking people out where they would use tasers. The young lady mentioned the $900,000 that was settled for Device Mackey's case. That's pennies compared to the millions of dollars that taxpayers have paid because of unlawful shootings of cases that settled. I just want to make myself clear that this is not a dog and pony show. How can we be sure that what you're putting together and what you're asking us to eat is the fox to watch the hen house? Why can't we file federal indictments on overtime already on 2024? At what point are you going to indict an officer? The history around here is if you shoot a long black kid, you get paid vacation.
That's right.
That's sad, but it's true. Race has nothing to do with it. Black officers have nothing to do with it. And other than me, you're looking at a black chief of police and a black district attorney. So it's not about race, it's about justice.
That's right.
What are we going to do? When are we going to indict an officer to send a message out to put
When?
I really do appreciate your question, your passion. But over the last year, we've indicted 3 police officers.
Not for killing
And
it.
for the murder.
Not for killing.
How many shootings, Craig?
How many shootings out of the 3?
No, how many?
They're still under investigation.
None of the victims died, Craig. We talking about the victims died.
I think it's a little disingenuous that you would laugh because the job they have to do is very difficult. We have to change the culture that we're dealing with.
Really? Sorry, the keep.
Can I finish?
I couldn't.
Can I finish?
I couldn't.
Can I finish?
No,
No, let me finish. So you didn't laugh when we exonerated 33 men.
I'm so sick of hearing that.
I'm sick of hearing it too.
That's what you should do. That's your job. They should have never been indicted. And your job is to indict police officers that kill our children.
I can't continue to do my job. So it doesn't help that you're angry at me when I'm in a position to do the job.
But you don't.
It doesn't help that you come to my house and pick me.
And that's why you're angry at me. Every time you see me, you won't even look at me. Because it's personal. And it shouldn't be personal. You see, you just admitted that it's personal. You are the district attorney. It shouldn't be personal. Do your job. No, you're not. There have been over 30 unarmed men that have been shot since you have been in office, and you have not indicted by one police officer. Shot and killed. That have been shot and killed.
Let me explain something to you about the legal process. I don't have the power to indict.
But your office is the office that put the report together. You can indict you indict your friend's friend. Hello. I mean, you are the district attorney. Your office puts together the processes that goes to the grand jury. We're not done.
This is not the Miss Flanagan show.
This is not done. And it's not the Craig Watkins show. It's the voter show.
We're going to ask you to leave if you can't follow the rules.
That's what you do to parents. Whenever we want, whenever. No.
We got a lot of parents in here that came to have a dialogue with these people, not just to hear you.
Well, you know what? These parents right here want to know about their loved one. You're bantering with me.
If we do this in an orderly fashion, this isn't the first, this isn't the last.
Okay, go ahead and cover up. Go ahead, that's your job.
It's your job.
It's your job.
So we can reach more people. But this is what happens.
Because we're not here to litigate or relitigate cases that have gone on in the past. We're talking about what changes they've made and what they want to do to be a solution to the problem. Not just to bicker about things that have happened in the past.
Ma'am, we have heard your cries and we are very empathetic to what happened. We do have independent grand juries, ma'am, that did not choose to indict. And I know that
we're so tired of
but we do not control the independent grand jury. And if you'd like to come down and talk to us again, you can do that.
Accessible
But we
to
can't
us.
let you monopolize the whole show.
Nobody's monopolizing. You're not answering questions.
Is this lady, is she taking too much time?
No! 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 She's not! No, you didn't say your question.
Mr. Watkins and Mr. Brown, my name is Norris Lee. I'm just a regular citizen of Dallas, not from Dallas, but I've been here about 8 years. I had a question. You did mention the funding, and I was wondering, does that funding, will it include going back and looking at some of these cases? That was one question. Mr. Brown, we're talking about transparency. And I'm not no legal guy, but I don't understand, like if you have an accident, you can go down to the police station and get a copy of that police report. We talk about transparency. Hey, I don't want to, this is not meant to be funny. When we look at football games and basketball games and they show replay. Okay, just please come here. So I don't know what changes when you've got a video film, why someone can't in the public see that film when you're looking at it. Transparency. I don't understand. If you can maybe share some of that, and then here's another thing about transparency. The only thing I really see that's very clear, and I'm sure it's clear to everybody in this church, the number of young black men that has been killed is ridiculous across this country. Not just here in Dallas. No, we don't want another Ferguson, because we're better than that. But then what are we supposed to do to get our voices heard and to stop the police from killing our innocent young black men? Somebody's got their hand up, they should be shot. Right there. If you could answer just a couple of those questions, please. Thank you.
Yeah, well, as a basic funding, I was awarded 2 positions.
Sounds like you want to be here, Fred.
I'll put this together. Yeah, I was awarded funding for 2 positions. I've been fighting for this for 2 years. And so I understand the frustration. I understand that we have children that have been lost. And I really do respect the passion that's in this room. But you are basically attacking the person that's going to make the difference. And so I'm here.
God is going to win.
There's no DA that's ever put this in place. I am. And so, can you let me do my job?
Please do your job.
That's all we want.
Let me do my job.
Please do your job. Indict some cops.
I've only been the DA for 8 years.
8 years?
Okay, you know how long? Okay, how long was you away the DA? 34 years. And do you think I can change what, not just 34 years, he was a DA for 34 years, and then there was a DA for 12 years after that, and a DA for 8 years after that. And so do you think I can change all that in 8?
Video in comparison to a football game video, this ain't football.
No, I know that.
So it's different. Whether or not you get an indictment or a no bill is hanging in the balance on how we investigate that case. I always say this because we always debate when to release the video, when to hold on to it. We've got one chance to get it right. We can't be quick. We can't try to be first. We have to get it right. And so many times, the video corroboration, talking to witnesses, and making sure you canvass the area to see and talk to everyone that saw or had some piece of evidence, because what the video does, then it taints witnesses' version of what happened and what they saw. And so we're not just releasing it to you or to the victim's family, it's to potential witnesses that we haven't yet talked to potentially. And so we're always weighing getting information out and how we get it out versus tainting potential witnesses, tainting potential evidence. And so we don't make everybody happy in our decision making. I understand that. And like I said, I'm listening to you and I hear you. I'm not ignoring what you say.
Yeah, it's not meant to be funny about the football. It's just, if the video never changes, how does it?
I'm sorry, your time is up, sir. Respect the format. Let me read a question. I'm trying to get to everybody's questions. Please don't shoot the messenger. Can I get an amen? Okay, Pastor, I'm going to have to get you up here for these folks, okay? I just want to get everybody's question in. This is a dialogue with the community. What justifies a person to be shot multiple times unarmed? I want to talk to the police chief about what training methods are in place to train officers to get away from these type of shootings.
We're always training our officers in over crisis management and dealing with suspects who might resist. And so many times people comply with everything you say do, and you end it and there's no further use of force. And then there's incidents where the person is resisting. They may be unarmed, but they're resisting. And I've tried to explain this actually when an officer had to fight a suspect several times, and the suspect took his handcuffs. The suspect was actually beating him pretty good, and the officer had to use force. And so it's an easy question, but it's a hard answer. There's never an easy outcome when we fight the police. Never. So I always tell people when they ask me a question about what do you tell people that are unarmed, and the first thing I tell them, don't fight the police. Don't fight the police. Litigate your case through complaints, through following the process in the Citizens Review Board, in calling my office, document that the officer's behavior was not appropriate, build a case that officer can be terminated eventually over, but don't fight the police, because the outcome is we have to protect our gun. We can't lose a fight and then lose our gun and then lose our life. On the other hand, it is never okay to shoot an unarmed person with their hands up. Never. Never. And so we hold firm on that. You can shout me down, but I've put my money where my mouth is. I've held firm on that we're not going to shoot people who give up, who surrender with their hands up. Terminated officers, and understand we're not going to relitigate that when the grand jury did indict, and so we don't like the outcome of the criminal justice system, but we stand firm that we're going to make sure the process works, even though we don't like the outcome sometimes. But that's my answer to the question. It's never okay to shoot an unarmed person who's not resisting, but also don't fight the police.
And that's what you're training your officers not to do. And ma'am, if you want to go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. This is my son, Keemon Bolden. He was killed in 2009. No police officers ever came to my house to tell me what happened to my son. I went a whole week. I buried my son. I called Monday morning, and I asked the detective, why is it no one has called me? When I went to the hospital, which my son's body was moved, he died
in the apartment complex. So he was pronounced, no, he wasn't pronounced dead. The police department pronounced him dead. The forensic department should have pronounced my son dead. But they took him to Baylor. When I went to Baylor, they told me they were giving him an autopsy, and I could not see my son. So this is why I need this case reopened. I don't believe anything that the DA department said, Mr. Craig Watkins. I called your office several times. I called your office several times, Chief Brown, because of what was going on for 3 years was not right. Now the Dallas Police Department wants to talk to my family because they did not come out and say what happened to my son. No justice, that's what it is. No justice for my baby. And I'm at the complex now. That complex was horrible 3 weeks ago. Grass had grown up. Everything was going on there. City of Dallas.
Hey ma'am, I'm not trying to cut you off, but you have to
But let me ask the question. When do the Dallas Police Department come out when your child is in the custody of them? Because he was in the custody of them when he went to Baylor Hospital. When do you all come out?
Okay, this is 2009, ma'am. I faintly remember some of the facts of your case. I'll need to go back and look, but let me just say, to answer your question, it sounds like he was under arrest or in custody in some way.
No, he was not under, no, he was not. He wasn't doing anything. Okay. My son, I don't know what happened to him.
Okay, ma'am, let me do this. Some of my folks are here to work for me, and we're going to get your information.
Okay.
Now I'll be with you and find out the details and give it to you.
All right. Thank you.
And I'm sorry for your long time.
Good evening. My name is Cheyenne Malahi. I'm a civil rights attorney, and I'm here representing Dallas Communities Organized for Change. I have two basic questions. Dia Watkins, I know you're establishing this new department. Will that also be, would you be talking to Chief Brown regarding rescinding the 72-hour review policy? Right. Because at this point, an officer involved in the shooting doesn't have to talk to investigators for 72 hours. So would you be talking to Chief Brown about that? And secondly, Chief Brown, you did mention the Dallas Citizen Police Review Board. That's been in place for over, I think, 20 years. Isn't it time, I think a lot of people would agree, that we take a look at it and maybe give it more teeth and real subpoena powers so we can be certain that there'll be an independent body looking at these police officer shootings. I appreciate you.
Can I address the 72-hour rule? It's been really misrepresented. When officers are involved in shootings, they're read the Miranda rights like every citizen would, because they're under investigation for a homicide. And so we're dealing with both criminal law and employment law. On the criminal side, it passes through to the grand jury. On the employment law side, it comes to my desk on determining the officer's employment. Under the criminal law rules, they don't have to talk to us at all. They have the right to remain silent. So what we negotiate is, because we're trying to also decide their employment, we've negotiated, we'll give you 3 days so that we can find out what happened, because we don't want to hold the hostage, the public hostage on facts that we want to send out immediately. And so we were back and forth with our unions about this issue of when you talk to us and how you talk to us, and we negotiated this 3 days, but they have the right to remain silent, just like any one of you. They don't have to talk to us at all. And so what they say in the criminal will go through the grand jury. So if they refuse to talk to us and then we say, well, your employment now is at stake, and then they will talk to us, the Supreme Court says you can't use that against them in a criminal. And so we're always in this negotiation with them on what you tell us, when you tell us. They have a right to an attorney, so then we wait for their attorney to get to the scene. They have the same rights everyone in this country have, but their employment's at stake, which is different than maybe one of you getting in a shooting. So we're balancing employment law with criminal law and the rights on those and case law associated with those, because you don't want to have a case where you might want to charge the officer, but you didn't follow due process and you can't use the statements against them. So that's what we're balancing, and it's been misrepresented. I hope I cleared up some of that.
Okay, and in the fairness of time, I can't have both of those questions answered. I want to go to you right here.
Good evening. My name is Hadi Jawad. I'm representing the Texas Civil Rights Project. Before I start, I would like, if it is okay with everybody, I would like to ask family members of victims of police shootings to just stand up, if you would, please. I appreciate the words that I've heard from Chief Brown, Sheriff Valdez, and Craig Watkins. Words like transparency and accountability. These are really good words. This is the direction this city must go into. If we have transparency, we will eventually get some accountability. So we need transparency, and I appreciate your efforts in that direction, and want to applaud your initiative to create this two-person unit to investigate on a parallel track with the police department. But I would like to suggest to you from the Texas Civil Rights Project an idea that accountability and transparency is all good, but it will come only when citizens of this city of Dallas, are empowered to be part of this process also. Yes. And I would like to suggest to you one vehicle where this could be done rather easily. And I would like to ask you if you will support this. Now, at City Hall, we have the Police Citizens Review Board. Now, years ago, we had designated seats on that review board for the Dallas bar, the black bar, the Hispanic bar. The people of this community were involved in that review board. Now, what has happened is that those seats have been taken away. They have been given to city council members who can award that seat to people who worked, get them elected. That, I think, is a dysfunction in the democratic process over here. So my question is, would you please support reinstatement of the Dallas bar, the black bar, and the Hispanic bar on the Citizens Police Review Board at Dallas City Hall?
And I'm sorry, right here to the right.
They didn't answer the question.
I don't mind taking up that charge and having those conversations with the city manager's office and the city council members. I will take that charge up. I think it's a good suggestion.
That's something that would have to be voted on, is what I'm gathering. So I didn't think they could answer that because he's not the whole city council. So I would suggest that when that issue comes up, that everybody goes to that civil council meeting and step up to the mic to say why it should be voted upon. Okay, now I can ask you a question.
Okay,
Thank you.
Very quickly, my question is regarding the double standard. And I think that's probably, half the people here and what's going on in Ferguson right now, what the frustration is over. And it's the double standard between how law enforcement is investigated for wrongdoing against public citizens, and how public citizens, when they are being accused or being found as some kind of having committed some type of crime or alleged crime, there's a double standard in how those are treated, how the media is used. You mentioned about the video and not releasing the video, but we know right away who the alleged criminals are in the public. So my question is this: one, we recognize that there is a double standard. Ferguson is an example of that. If there is any plan with the new civil rights program, Mr. Watkins. Yes, Mr. Watkins, that you have created, and or outside of that with the police chief. And two, if there is a plan, what is it? And if there's not a plan, would you consider creating one?
I appreciate your question. Very large an issue. That's why we're starting this unit. Obviously we recognize that there are issues here, and we're going to make sure that we make this fair. We're going to make sure that we look at this from an objective standpoint, point of view. You're going to have it come from the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. So therein lies the reason we started this unit. I just hope that you guys will give me the opportunity to do it.
Good evening, my name is Hannah Diaz, and I'm a teacher here in Dallas. Thank you for coming out and speaking with us. My question is regarding double standard as well, specifically the way that our young men of color are treated by law enforcement versus those who are not young men of color. So in terms of prevention, I was wondering if you could please describe what happens regarding training to educate incoming or current officers on racial biases that exist and the harm that is done when these biases play out in a violent way in a crisis situation. Talk about it. And after you describe it, I'm wondering of your personal opinion, do you believe this training is sufficient, or are there plans to reevaluate it and improve it? Thank you.
I can put it on the website.
We're in the process now of reevaluating our cultural diversity training. We convened a group of people from the community to help us craft that training. I would solicit anyone that wants to get involved in that, in the way we train our officers on Dallas community, the different cultures, what your expectations of us are. I look forward to you calling my office or getting in contact with any of the folks you see here in uniform and get a hold of me, and we'll get you on board to help us with that.
And could you describe the training that your officers currently go through, please?
Right, it's not a quick explanation, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible. We talk about all of the diverse communities in Dallas. We talk about the history of Dallas. I'm a third generation Dallasite, born and raised here. And so we integrate all the bad stuff between the communities and the Dallas Police Department, the history, good and bad. We talk about the civil rights movement, and we acclimate our officers to some unique challenges with certain communities. And we then describe our expectations of how we want officers to treat citizens with respect, like you want to be treated. So that's kind of the brief version. It's more complex than that, but that's kind of the brief version of what we do.
Is it available on the website?
I'm sorry. Give the website, please, and then we do have to move on.
Contact my office, I'll get you further information.
Okay. Okay, this is going to be the last question. It's 8:20, and we are going to have another town hall meeting. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody. But if I will take the last question from a young African-American male who is obviously concerned enough to be here. How old are you? You're 17 years old. Let me give you my, we haven't heard from a 17-year-old yet.
I'd like to, first off, thank you for taking my question. I didn't know I was going to be the last question. But as a young black teenager, I've seen 3 times on TV and in my own life many citizens being harassed and mistreated by law enforcement officers. When I was just a little bit younger, I had a police officer go and follow me from my school all the way to my friend's house about 3 miles down that I wouldn't walk to because I didn't have a car. That police officer not only followed me to that area 3 miles away, but he went knocking door to door saying, or asking people if they had seen this suspicious figure walking around the neighborhood. And after that, it really damaged my trust and my faith in the police force. And I always wanted to ask, how do you plan to stop sort of practices like this so that it gains the trust back for not just me, but the people in my generation and the generations to come?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect person. So let me just point out the obvious. Chief Brown and I are African-American males that grew up in Dallas. we can hopefully experience the same things you've experienced. We bring those experiences to the table in our positions right now. We have an opportunity to make those differences, make the changes. And what we need, and the reason we're having this meeting today, is to let the people know that we are concerned with it and we're going to do everything we can to make a difference. And we would hope that we can leave this on a positive note. The fact that you have an African American chief and an African American DA who experienced what you've experienced, who've seen it, but we have to work to make the changes. It's not going to be overnight, and we're doing that. I wish I could snap my fingers and things will change very quickly, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. We're doing everything we can to make things better as it relates to policing and as it relates to law enforcement and the district attorney's office. I think Chief Brown's record speaks for itself. I think my record as a DA speaks for itself. I think Lupe Valdez's record speaks for itself. How many times did you have the DA, the chief of the police, and the sheriff sitting down in a meeting like this years ago? We're here. We're listening. We understand your pain, and we're going to make sure that we make a difference. So give us the opportunity.
Give us the opportunity. What about our
I want to apologize for your experience with the Dallas Police Department personally. You have my apologies. And we hold officers accountable. I have the unfortunate record to have terminated more officers in my tenure than any chief in recent memory because of their behavior. Some this type of behavior that you experience. And so I just want to make sure you understand I'm standing firm with upholding the mission and how we want to treat people, and that's with respect, and we don't back away from that firm stance against this type of behavior.
Hey, hold it.
My son was on TV for 2 years. 2 years. And he didn't get shot. He got beat up by their hands. They used their hands to choke him, break his Adam apple, then turn around, fracture behind his eye, 2 rib cages busted, and then nothing was done. That's why these parents are mad. That's why we're mad.
I'm sorry.
Quit cutting us off. Let us speak.
Why y'all cutting us off? We paid $5 to get in here.
Let us
sit in line for 30 minutes. We stood out there for 30 minutes to get in here. The line was long. Now y'all want to cut us off. Hold up.
We didn't come here to stand. We came here to be heard.
Yes. So you gonna cut us off?
And I want to speak. Whether you think the media is gonna be here to hear, it doesn't matter. I want to speak.
My son, this is my thing. 2 things. I think you all should hold a separate meeting.
We are holding a separate meeting, ma'am. I'd like to be able to share. Yes, I will let you finish, but please stop interrupting me. I'm trying really hard.
Man, you interrupt everybody else.
This is not, and I understand you paid $5, and we are.
And stood in line 30 minutes. So I lost 30 minutes. I lost 30 minutes to get in here.
Last town hall meeting, sir.
And why y'all have it right here when the black community is over there and most of us are getting shot down?
Okay,
we getting shot down.
They're officers for everybody, not just the white race, for everybody. White, Hispanic, black, Asian, Middle Eastern. So first of all,
I hope y'all enjoy my $5 at lunch.
Everybody did not need to talk. I am sorry. It is 8:30, and we are going to have another town hall meeting, as Mr. Watkins said. The next one is going to be at Friendship West. You can go.
That's where he's going to church at. It's not happening already.
Well, you can go to DallasCA.com with your questions and concerns. This is not falling on deaf ears, and I know there's a lot of pain in this room. I recognize it. That is why they put themselves out. Do you think this is easy? It's not easy to sit up here and to be accused
not easy for the parents
that they don't
either.
care. They do care, or they wouldn't be here. And I understand that everybody's answer is not satisfactory.
Voting time.
But what other city is doing a town hall meeting where you have
A whole bunch of cities.
all 3, the police chief, the sheriff's department, the DA's office, This is not my church, man. The pastor would like to wrap it up. This is the pastor's church. And I'm sorry, we're on this time schedule. It's 8:30. I'm so sorry.
Y'all need to have a separate meeting for victims, because they got issues, and you need to have a meeting for us. Because I got 14 to 12 years old that was flipped on the ground. And if I didn't know my rights, the officers wouldn't stop. We need to be heard. They need to be addressed.
Y'all extend the time for 30 more
They
minutes?
got to be heard. We need to be heard.
That's an excellent point. But we're not going to get it all done tonight.
30 more minutes.
30 more minutes.
30 more minutes.
30 more minutes.
30 more minutes. Cut the line off. Cut the line off. 30 more minutes. Put it down. 30 more minutes.
We're going to wrap up. We're going to close with a word of prayer. So
30 more minutes.
I want you to
Can't give us 30 more minutes.
30 more minutes. Wrap the
we're
line
going
up.
to close with a word of prayer. Yeah.
30 more minutes.
The clergy will join us here, those who are clergy. And then I will ask all of us to stand, and I want you to reach out and grab your neighbor's hand. All clergy, you'll come up, please. For those who are truly hurting, you're in the right place. Every Sunday, that's when we open the doors, and not just on Sunday, to address the hurt.
Well, you need to come out to the community to address the hurt.
This used to be our community anyway.
And we seek healing. We seek healing. We seek healing. And again, we're striving to be that bridge. And understand, you go to church, many of us go to church every Sunday, and you're not healed that day. It's a process. And we want to work through that process. That's why we're here tonight. And so with that, we're going to close in a word of prayer. Amen. And I know all hearts are not clear, but we're going to give it to God right now. Okay? Let us pray. We come with hurts. We come with hearts that are heavy. We come with pain. We come with struggle. We come with strife. We come angry. We come bitter. We bring a whole multitude of concerns and issues to this evening's event. But we turn our attention to the hope and the promise of a God who loves us and a God who desires what is best for us. And I pray that we turn the hurt and those struggles in a manner that creates new momentum, establishes possibilities and the potential of what has happened tonight because of the effort that has been made on this evening to bring us together, to strive for a better Dallas, a better community, and better people. And so we leave this place knowing that our God is before us, has been with us in the past, and is standing with us right now. And as we reach and grab the person next to us, I pray that the love that is in our hearts will, through osmosis, filter to their lives. And they will experience you right now. And when we leave this place, we are reminded that we are called to live a life that brings you glory. And so right now, we ask all of this knowing that we don't have the answer, but we're seeking you to give us peace, comfort, in the name of Jesus. We pray. Amen.
Amen.
Justice, God, justice. If you have everybody, look at y'all there. If you have to do something, I'll get to it.